Hello and welcome to our program, Aging Gracefully, Smart Choices for Physical, Financial, and Emotional Well-Being. I'm Kathy Maniello of Forevermore Homes, and I'm your host for the program today. And with me is Heather Hitchcock. Heather is with Bristol Hospital Behavioral Health, and she is here to talk to us about the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. I know myself and many of you have probably experienced moments of forgetfulness, and you start to worry, is this something that I should be concerned with, or is it just normal? And Heather is here to answer those questions for us. So thank you so much. We just came from the community center where Heather did this talk to a group of 50 seniors, and they were so responsive and engaged and really
great questions.
Wonderful questions and really interested in the topic. So we hope that today we can bring this to a wider audience through the wonderful folks here at Guilford Community Television. So Heather, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this role?
Absolutely. I can't really tell you how I got into the field of aging. My best bet, my mom was widowed when I was a toddler, and my great-grandmother helped raise me. And I think that's just kind of when I decided that senior citizens rock. Like,
yes,
they're awesome.
Yeah.
So when all my friends were working at the mall in high school, I was a CNA in a nursing home, and I went on in the 80s to get my degree in gerontology, which was almost unheard of at the time.
Now, what is gerontology?
Gerontology is the study of the process of aging working with the elderly.
I see.
So my career kind of evolved into long-term care aspects, and very early on I realized that Alzheimer's was a horrible disease that was going to get much more prevalent. And so I started volunteering with the Alzheimer's Association in 1996, and here I am today.
Oh, wow. So you've been at this for a long time. I know myself, I've personally been touched by Alzheimer's through a very close family friend, and I think many people have been. One of the things that confuses me, and I hope you can shed some light on this, is I hear different terms. I hear dementia, I hear Alzheimer's, and now I hear Lewy body. Can you explain the difference among those terms and what we need to know about them?
Absolutely, and you're not alone in your confusion.
Good. Okay.
As a whole, the community is confused about that. A lot of medical providers are confused about that because it's not their specialty. So they're not keeping up on everything. So basically we call dementia an umbrella term.
Okay.
And an umbrella term is basically has a bunch of things falling under it. So dementia is a grouping of symptoms.
Okay.
It is forgetfulness. It is difficulty with problem solving and confusion in word finding, all kinds of things, but those are symptoms.
Symptoms.
Alzheimer's is the number one cause of those symptoms.
Okay.
So dementia is an umbrella term used for all the symptoms, and Alzheimer's is the number one diagnosis that causes those symptoms.
So it sounds almost like if I had the flu and my symptom was a fever, the fever is the symptom, the flu is my diagnosis. Dementia is the symptom, Alzheimer's might be the diagnosis.
Might be the diagnosis.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. So I know a certain amount of forgetfulness is normal as we get older.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Your brain is a muscle.
Yes.
And just like the muscles in your body that wear and tear, it's a real thing. And as we age, we're not able to do the same things physically. Your brain is the same. We're wearing it, we're tearing it, we're using it. And normal aging does bring some forgetfulness.
Okay. And I also feel, I know myself, I experience this, I just feel all this information coming at me from all different directions. Like, where's the room for all this in my head? It's overload. And sometimes to me, it feels overwhelming.
It's absolutely overwhelming.
Does that add to?
We are a much higher tech society. We absolutely have more stimuli.
Yes, too much.
In our lives. And so what your brain has always done is, it's your hippocampus in your brain. It it assigns a value to everything that comes into your brain.
Okay.
And your hippocampus kind of gets to say, okay, this is really important. We're going to keep this for a long time.
Right.
And this doesn't matter.
Okay.
So, and everything that you go through is kind of in between. So when you look at your watch and you realize 3 seconds later you have no idea what time it is, it's because your hippocampus was like, listen, I'm trying to figure out what's for dinner.
Right.
And that is more important than
the
what time it is.
And you have your watch and you can just look at it
and
again.
you can look again.
Okay.
So that's kind of what your brain is doing. And 40 years ago, there was maybe 3 things coming in at once.
Yes.
Now you've got 50 coming in at once.
So we've all experienced the normal, I misplaced my keys, or I misplaced my phone, or wait, what did I have for dinner last night? And those types of things. When you have 10 warning signs.
We do have 10, and these 10 warning signs are from the Alzheimer's Association.
Okay.
It's a national organization that provides information, caregiving assistance, resources, and most importantly, we pay for research for Alzheimer's Association. These are their 10 warning signs.
Yes.
And I just kind of break them down a little bit.
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for these slides. They're very helpful. And the wonderful people here at Guilford Community Television, as you're talking, they will have these visuals there for our viewers to see. And I'm going to refer to them from time to time because there's a lot of information here and I want to make sure that we get to everything. So starting on the 10 symptoms. Let's hear.
We call them warning signs.
Warning signs, okay.
And these are things, and it's really hard to say if A, then B. Because, for example, the name of my talk is I forgot my key. I forgot where my keys are. Do I have Alzheimer's?
Yes.
And as I share when I present that, I lose my keys daily.
Right.
That's not a sign.
Yes, because that's normal for you.
It's normal for me. So the first thing we say is memory loss that affects daily life.
Okay.
Losing my keys, while annoying, doesn't interfere with my daily life because it's status quo for me.
Okay.
What I do say to people is if you have your keys in your hand and you're not sure what they're for, now we have a concern.
I see.
Now
There's
we're
a
worried.
clear distinction.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So what else?
So we talk about processing problems. Problem solving becomes an issue. And one of the things that the Alzheimer's Association kind of says is a great sign of problem solving issues is somebody can no longer count change.
Oh.
You can't differentiate the quarter's value versus the dime's value versus the penny's value. And so we often say that looking at a parent's bank account and seeing what they're spending, where their money is going, if they're you're not trying to spy on your parents and be like, why did you spend that? But you're looking for patterns that are
not
different
the norm.
from previous patterns.
Right.
So we talk about that. We talk about forgetting important dates and times. Now, we all forget an appointment from time to time.
Of course.
Absolutely. And when you have 7 in a day, I joke with coworkers that I look at my daily agenda probably 15 times a day. But if your daughter's birthday is coming up and there's a big party and you just completely forget that it exists,
That's
now
an
we're a little concerned.
Okay.
Did you get your days messed up, or did you completely forget that the party is happening? Those are things we want to take a closer look at. Remember, these are all normal to a certain degree signs and symptoms of aging.
Yes.
It's when it becomes prohibitive to your daily life.
Okay. What are some of the other signs that you see?
So we talk about visual and spatial issues.
Okay.
Spatial awareness, which is kind of, well, what does that mean? What is spatial awareness? Spatial awareness is thinking, is looking at something and being able to tell how far away it is. So I may think that your necklace is beautiful, and I may be 20 feet away, and I'm trying to touch it, and it looks like I'm just picking something in the air. It's because my spatial awareness is off and I think I can touch that.
Interesting.
We bring it up a lot because it becomes a safety issue when it comes to ambulation or walking.
Sure.
So changes in colors of floors, changes in patterns of floors can be very off-putting because, and I acclimate it to, what's the word I'm looking for?
You're doing a word search now.
I am doing a word search.
You lost your word.
I compare it to the first time I got progressives,
Yes.
bifocals. The first time I put them on, the floor was like, ooh, how far away is it?
Yes.
And that's what happens. A lot of people don't realize Alzheimer's has physical manifestations as well as
I didn't realize.
mental.
Yes.
So your vision is one of those. And so you may have someone who sees a thin strip on the floor and tries to lift their foot very high over it because they think it's a tall barrier.
Interesting.
Dark colored things, very difficult because a navy blue or a black rug to someone with Alzheimer's may look like a hole that they're going to fall into.
Wow.
So if
that's
someone's
frightening.
kind of fighting you on moving forward or doing something, you want to look at the area around you and figure out, if I wasn't spatially aware, what would this look like?
Yes. And I remember in your talk at the community center, you talked about the shuffling.
Yes.
And so that's a sign.
Well, a shuffle can be a sign of a lot
Of
of
things.
things. With aging, mobility has many challenges with
But
aging.
in combination with some of these other things that you're speaking about.
Absolutely. There's a shuffle. Number one, it gets a little harder to move, but a lot of times in the very beginning, it's very visual.
I see.
And someone with Alzheimer's, often in the middle to late stages, it never crosses their mind to look anywhere but right in front of them. So you've got this bubble here, and they don't really look down.
Okay.
And they don't really look up, and they don't really look to the sides. So if you need to engage them in something, it needs to be in this
Within their
bubble.
line of vision. I see.
Absolutely.
Now it's funny that you lost your word there for a second. Talk about that, because you did a nice job with that at the community center.
So word finding. We all forget words from time to time.
All the time.
Absolutely. The difference that I use for clarification with people is if you and I are having a conversation and I can't think of a word and I go, oh, I can't think of the word I want to tell you.
Yeah.
And we finish our conversation without that word. I text you 2 hours later, oh my gosh, the word was compatible. I can't believe I forgot the word compatible. And you go, oh, yeah. If you come up to me and say, hey, did you ever think of that word? And I say, what word?
What are you talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't forget a word. If I've forgotten that I forgot a word,
Okay.
or if I forgot the conversation entirely,
Yes.
now we have a concern. Or if tripping over that word finding stops me to the point where I forget we're having a conversation, and you're like, did you want to finish that sentence? And I don't know what you're talking about.
I see.
Because the brain tripped, it got focused on processing that one word,
Right.
and it completely lost the prior conversation that we were having. Now we have an issue.
It's very scary.
Another sign is difficulty with daily tasks.
For example?
For example, brushing your teeth, getting dressed. Things that are very familiar to you, something that you do all the time. And the example that I give, often that helps put it in perspective, is either that someone realizes they have to put on undergarments, pants, shirt, sock, shoes,
Yes.
but doesn't put them on in the right order or on the right body part. So you know they all go on you,
Yes.
but the rest is kind of garbled up. And the problem also is that you don't realize you're doing it wrong.
Right.
So if you see somebody walking outside with their underwear on top of their pants, you know, our first inclination is to, what's wrong
going
with them?
on? Yeah.
But we have to stop and think, is there a cognitive impairment? Is there a mental health issue? At Bristol Hospital, I do community education for both our senior behavioral unit, which is inpatient geriatric psychiatry, but I also do it for our adult unit, which is adult behavioral health. And that's what you would consider your more traditional mental health, your schizophrenia, your bipolar, your addiction issues.
Right.
So I remind people it doesn't necessarily have to be Alzheimer's. Something else could be going on with their mental health.
Sure. So it seems like in most situations, it's someone else observing the behavior of this person that starts to see the red flags. Is that true? Or if I'm...
It's very realistic to say that other people notice it first. Okay. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, the person with the impairment often does go through a phase where they realize what's happening. And it's terrifying.
Of course.
I think I'm losing my mind. I think I'm going crazy. I think, and the people around them have already noticed, are saying, you know what, I told you this 4 times. Why are you asking me again? Right. Or starting to finally say, hey, I shared that with you several times. I'm a little bit concerned.
Okay, so now what?
I always recommend that the first step is to see a primary care physician.
Okay.
However, I like to empower people that if your primary care physician, and this doesn't happen to the extent that it used to, but 10 years ago, everyone would say, well, my doctor diagnosed me with dementia. And that is just one of those little pet peeves of mine, because that's not a diagnosis.
It's a symptom.
It's a symptom. And what is causing the symptoms is so important.
Right.
Because how you prepare for it, how you move forward with it, how you treat it is so different depending on what's going on.
So I know you're a proponent of early intervention, early treatment. Tell us about that. And why is that so important?
So up until very recently, there was no cure, which there still isn't. One of the things that the Alzheimer's Association says is the first survivor is out there already. We just have to figure out how to stop it.
Yeah.
So we do have a medication that has been FDA approved that is showing help in the early stages of the disease. The problem is, although FDA has approved it, Medicare has not. So you have this drug that people in the beginning stages are saying, I could have this many more years with my kids. Yes. I could meet my first grandchild. Yes. I could see this happen. And Medicare is saying, we don't really value that.
So will they catch up with it eventually and pay for that drug?
That is our hope.
Okay.
Alzheimer's Association had a rally last week. June 21st is the longest day, which is the summer solstice, the day with the most sunlight. So Alzheimer's Association celebrates that day as a caregiver for someone with Alzheimer's never has a break. Because Alzheimer's never stops. If you're caring for someone with cancer or another terminal illness, they sleep. Right. They're thankful for what you're doing for them. The person with Alzheimer's rarely sleeps, you rarely get a break, and caregiving, there's a book called The 36-Hour Day, because they talk about how caregiving for Alzheimer's does not rest because the person doesn't rest.
Yes.
So we had a big rally, it was on the news, just really talking to Medicare, Center for Medicare, and saying, these people deserve this. It's $28,000 a year, I think, is the latest thing that I heard.
And that's just unreachable for the majority of us.
It is. It is. So we're fighting for that.
Good. Keep fighting.
We will.
Keep fighting. So where does someone go to get more information? You talk about caregivers, and I'm sure that caregivers need support. And how do we find out about clinical trials? And how do we find some of these resources?
So alz.org.
It will be up on our screen.
Is where you go. Now, if you do alz.org/CT, you'll go right to the Connecticut site.
Okay.
However, if you're just looking for the 10 warning signs in writing, you're looking for information on younger onset, you're looking for information on anything, you can just go to alz.org and you will just find more information than you could possibly know you wanted to know, but it's there. alz.org/CT has local resources. So you need a geriatric physician. We have a list on the website.
Okay.
You need geriatric psychiatry. You need memory care, housing. You need home health care that takes care of memory. We've got it all.
That's awesome.
On that website. It's called the Community Resource Finder.
That's great.
We also have a 1-800 number that I'm hoping is behind us as well.
Yes, it will be there.
And that is a helpline. It's not a hotline. So if you're in crisis,
Don't call that
don't
number.
call that number. Please call 911. But people call the helpline for so many different reasons. With questions, looking for information about resources. I remember many years ago, Jennifer, our helpline coordinator, saying that a woman called her at almost the same time on a certain day of the week and just cried.
Oh.
And it was the one time of the week that someone else was sitting with her spouse, and she just needed to cry.
She needed someone there at the other end of that phone at that moment, and
to validate that this is the hardest thing you're ever going to do in your life. We understand. One of the things that I love, and Patty O'Brien, who works at the Hartford Healthcare Centers for Healthy Aging, she's a dementia specialist. One of the things she said to me once was the best thing that a caregiver can do is make a list of things that would be helpful.
okay.
Because when someone says to you, how can I help, Kathy?
Yeah.
Something may
Well,
not
I
come
don't
to
know.
mind.
I can't think of anything right now.
Or what if you suggest something that is out of that person's comfort zone? So if you sit with my husband while I go grocery shopping, this person may be like, oh no,
that's not
I
happening.
can't do that.
But I'll go do your grocery shopping for you.
Exactly. So I tell people, make a list and say any one
on
of
this
these
list.
things would be helpful to me, dependent on your comfort
That's
level.
a great idea, and that's not just for an Alzheimer's
No.
patient. That's across
Any
the board.
caregiver. Anyone dealing with grief or trauma, because people want to help.
For sure.
But if you ask them to do something out of their comfort zone, they don't want to help anymore.
Right.
So give them a choice.
Yes.
And caregivers come back to me and say, my God, that was the best advice.
That is sound advice. Thank you
is.
so much, Heather.
Patty's a genius.
Is there anything else you would like our viewers to know before we wrap up today?
I just really want people to know, and I think this is the same with any chronic illness, you are not alone.
Right.
And Alzheimer's is so isolating. It's so, you can't leave the house and you feel all alone and you feel like you're the only person dealing with this. We have support groups. We have so many resources. We have so many groups that get together. We have so much to offer. By we, I'm talking about Alzheimer's and my volunteer work with them, not Bristol Health in particular, although we have lots of resources. And they just have to reach out.
Yes.
They just, and
So don't go it alone.
please don't go it alone. And one of the few benefits of COVID was that a lot of support groups are now virtual.
Making it
So
more accessible.
the biggest problem with support group for people with Alzheimer's and their caregivers is finding something to do with the person
Yes.
so that you can get the help that you need.
Yes.
So now that we do them virtually, it can be very helpful. And I do want to mention the walk.
Yes.
So the Walk to
please.
End Alzheimer's is the Alzheimer's Association's biggest fundraiser of the year. They happen in the fall. There's 6 in Connecticut. So no matter where you live, you can
You'll find a
one.
walk. Okay.
I'm the chair of the Central Connecticut Walk.
Okay.
And it's in Bristol, and it's at Rockwell Park in
Do you
Bristol.
know by chance where it is here on the shoreline?
I believe it's on Calf Pasture Beach in New Haven.
Well, we'll have to find out.
Yes. Don't hold me to that.
Okay.
And they happen in late September all the way through late October. And you can join a team, but listen, and I say it's the #1 fundraiser. It's also the #1 event where people come together. It's so joyous. There's a promise garden ceremony, and it's the place where people look around and go, I'm not alone.
I'm not alone. Here's my community.
Here is my community, and it's just so amazing. It gives me goosebumps, and I've been doing it for 26 years.
Well, that's why you're so passionate about
I am.
it.
I'm
It just shows through. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the work that you do. It's amazing, and you're truly, I'm sure you're a blessing to the families that you work with and the people that you touch.
Thank you for letting me carry on about it.
Quite welcome.
People say, well,
welcome.
where do you speak? And I say, I will speak to anyone
Anywhere.
who will have me. So,
Well, that ends our program for today. Thank you so much for joining us on Aging Gracefully, Smart Choices for Physical, Financial, and Emotional Well-Being. I'm Kathy Maniello, your host. Any questions, or if you need to reach out through me, questions for Heather, please, our phone number is available on the slide, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.